So it is Wednesday, March 30th, coming to the end of what is a really good sports month. It's been exceptional this year. March Madness was awesome. The NFL free agency period and all these trades have been amazing. We're getting to the end of the basketball season. We're starting to rev up baseball now. March has been fantastic. It really, truly has. So I'm anxious to see what April has in store for us. We're going to be on this crash course to the NFL draft late April. You're going to get the end of March Madness, the first Monday in April. And then, I mean, honestly, you get NBA playoffs not too long thereafter. Baseball starts up April 7th. And then it's just this whirlwind, you know what I mean? Until we get to the end of April. So I'm looking forward to all of that. But before we get to the draft, we have league meetings. They make decisions that will alter what the games look like in the future. They made a decision that we've talked about ad nauseum on this program. We're going to talk about it once more. And then I don't want to talk about it anymore because it really pisses me off. You guys know what I'm talking about. Stay tuned. We'll jump into that discussion. You're locked into the 250th Louie T Network podcast episode that starts now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 250th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. If you're out there, first and foremost, let me thank you for joining me on the 250th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Greatly appreciate you for chopping it up with the kid here on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon / evening / midday for some of you, wherever you are. Thank you for joining the kid. Also, if you are looking to be a part of the show, social media maneuvers a little bit later on, we'll be jumping into that here shortly. Go ahead and start lining your comments up. You know how this works. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If we have super chats, we'll take care of those first. Then we'll read the hashtags. If you want to jump to the front of the line and ensure that your comment gets read, super chats are the way to have that done. So go ahead, start lining those up. There are a bevy of topics that you may want to get to. There are a lot of things that have come out. A lot of people have spoken at these league meetings. We heard from a guy that we haven't heard from in years. The Ravens owner, Steve Bisciotti. I mean, and he had a lot to say. So I think there are some interesting tidbits that we can discuss and some things we can chop up and talk about. And we'll do that a little bit later on in the show. But before we do that, we're going to jump into what is usually my favorite part of the show. It's how we start every show. Don't act like you don't know. The gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, new overtime postseason rules are now in full effect. And generally, when they make rule changes in the NFL, it's on a trial basis, meaning, okay, we're going to give this thing a test run this year, see if we like it. Similar to the, pass interference can be challenged call rule that they had. It was a 1-year trial basis run. It was terrible. They did away with it, never for it to return again. They did that with the overtime 10-minute rules, and they went back and said, okay, this is fine. We'll leave it that way. They did it with the, first team gets the, team that kicks a field goal doesn't win the game necessarily. You got the other team gets to possess the football if you hold for a field goal. And then they realized that was a good idea. Same thing with the extra point when they moved it back to the 15-yard line and made it a 33-yard kick. 1 year, okay, it was cool. We liked it. All right, we're going to keep it. They're not doing that with this. This is being permanently made a part of the game in the postseason. This was a rule proposed by the Indianapolis Colts and the Philadelphia Eagles of all teams. Like, why these two teams? They haven't really been impacted by this rule, I don't think. Anyway, those two teams suggested that, each team possessed the football in overtime. I've spat out about this, rule change potentially. I knew it was going to happen because in the climate that we're in right now, everybody's got thin skin. Everybody wants to be heard. It has to be fair. Everybody should get a turn. That's the climate that we are in right now, where everyone's super sensitive. Oh no, Josh Allen and the Bills didn't get a chance and they didn't get a turn. No, that's not fair. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes a few years ago against Brady and the Patriots when when D Ford jumped off sides and they had the chance to win that football game, and instead they ultimately lose in overtime. Patriots win the toss, go right down the field and win it. I don't feel bad for those teams. Guess what? The Cincinnati Bengals didn't win the toss in the AFC Championship game against the Kansas City Chiefs. They didn't win the toss in overtime. They lost the toss. You know what they did? They went out and got a defensive stop. That's what they did. They had two opportunities to pick off Patrick Mahomes, and they took advantage of one of them, got the football back, and ultimately won the game. You're allowed to get defensive stops in overtime. That's a part of football, by the way, getting a stop. Not everybody having a turn. I could sit here and go on and on because we've done this before. I want to let you guys hear something because to me, it kind of encapsulates everything I feel on this subject matter. I don't generally listen to ESPN, but I was perusing their app. I was looking for something in particular. I ran across this, and I was interested in what Marcus Spears had to say because I had a feeling, as him being an ex-defensive player, had a feeling he was going to kind of feel similar to the way that I do. And I was floored at how, closely we were, in thought in terms of how we felt about this whole scenario. Take a listen to what Marcus Spears had to say this morning on Get Up.
I hate it. I hate everything about it because it's about feelings and emotion and not about football. Oh, everybody should get a turn to score. That ain't the way it's set up. That ain't the way this game's set up. Overtime is supposed to be sudden death. That is when all of the chips are in the middle of the table, and whatever team has the earliest success, that's the team that's supposed to win. I did like the rule of if you kick a field goal, the other team gets an opportunity, right? Because that's almost like a consolation prize that's getting a field goal. But if a team gives up a touchdown, if you let a team drive down the field 80 yards, 90 yards, 75 yards, and score a touchdown, you're supposed to go home. You're supposed to be going to the crib. And I know everybody gets excited because Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes had that wonderful game. And we heard this about Patrick Mahomes when they lost to Tom Brady in the playoffs. Well, we would have loved to see Patrick Mahomes get the ball back. The Chiefs defense could have made that happen. Mm-hmm. Last year, the Buffalo Bills defense could have made that happen. This is about feelings and emotion. And you know what else it does? It extends the game. I know this is just the playoffs. I know this rule is just implemented for that, which is even more egregious, G, because we know that it being only in the playoffs is about emotion and feeling. Because what games in the regular season don't matter to you as far as trying to get a win, to get in the playoffs or to get seeding. The one spot is way more valuable now in each conference than it was a couple years ago. So what's the difference? You still playing for something in the regular season. It just compounds to me that it's about feelings and emotion and people being upset and they want to get rid of defense being an integral part of the football game.
It's an overreaction. That's what this is. People were outraged. You should have seen how many people felt like, oh my God, Josh Allen and the Bills didn't get a turn. When are they going to change this rule? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Stop living in the moment. Yeah, that was a fantastic football game. We came on the very next day after that wild football game, and it was a great weekend of football. That was the Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken. No, Cowboys were in wild card weekend. I think that was the Titans game. Was that the Titans game? Yes, it was the Titans and Cincinnati. They had a wild game that weekend, and then it was this game, and the Bills and the Chiefs. And it was fantastic football. And then it was the crazy game with Green Bay and San Francisco, big upset. Didn't see that one coming. And then, the Tampa Bay and Rams game was crazy because the Rams were blowing out Tampa Bay. Looked like the game was over. Brady was on the precipice of bringing them back. And it was just wild that, Tampa Bay even had a chance to come back in that football game, and that Matthew Stafford had to engineer the game-winning drive to win that football game after, where they were in that ball game. So it was a crazy weekend of football that divisional round weekend was. And that was the highlight of that weekend. And it was the last thing that we saw. And so everybody was outraged. Oh my God, we got to do something. This rule is archaic. They need to change it. And I'm like, for what? If it's not broken, do not fix it. And then the thing that I said was, okay, so you want to fix the rule. All right, fine. I'm not closed-minded on this whole subject matter. If you've got a great idea, lay it on me. My ears are open. I want to know what's the way to make this situation better. And the best they could come up with is, hey, each team gets a possession. And I'm like, okay, so explain to me how this works, because I told you this is what was going to happen. Chiefs get the football first. They march down the field. They score. Bills get the football after the Chiefs. They march down the field. They score. Okay, so then after that, both teams got the football. Both teams scored a touchdown. Both teams decided to kick the extra point. We'll talk about that in a second. And so what? Now the Chiefs just get it again. They go down the field again and score, and the game's over. Okay, whoop-de-doo. You extended the game out by another 20 minutes. For what? So, because neither defense was going to stop the other team's offense in that game. That's a fact. So essentially what you're telling me is now you feel good about it because Josh Allen got an extra possession. They went down the field, they scored, and then they lost out on the next possession when Patrick Mahomes and that offense got it back again and went right back down the field and scored again. Now you feel a lot better. You can sleep at night now because the Bills got to touch it in overtime. Where's the psychological sense in that? If you think that this overtime rule solves anything, you need to wash your face and get your mind right. Now, here's where things get interesting. I don't like this because to me, you're penalizing, and I said the same thing before they made this stupid rule change. You're penalizing the team that gets the football first in overtime if they score a touchdown. Why are you penalizing them? Because they've now got to make a decision, one that will alter this game either way. They've got to make the decision whether they should go for two or not. Because if they kick the extra point and the other team knows they can't stop that team on offense and they know they can score, like Buffalo could have scored on Kansas City's defense if they gotten another chance. If Kansas City elects to kick the extra point, then Buffalo can then score a touchdown, go for two, and win the game. That's bullshit. Okay? It's bullshit. Why? Because if Kansas City goes for two, and they get it, great. Whoop-de-doo. Now Buffalo's got to go for two if they score a touchdown. Awesome. And if they get it, then Kansas City gets the football again, and then we're going through this whole cycle again where Kansas City just gets it back. Now they score. Now they win. Whoa, we extended the game by an extra possession for what? But if Kansas City decides if we don't go for two, Buffalo will, so we have to. So they do go for two. They don't get it. Now all Buffalo has to do is kick an extra point. They win. That's bullshit. You're penalizing me for going first. Because when you're in college football, right? In college football, if you win the toss in overtime, you know what you want to do? You defer. You want to be on defense. Why? Because you want to know what you need to win. When I go out bowling with my buddies, I'm a beast, right? I'm the champ. The champ is here. The champ is here. And I'm kicking their ass. But, every now and again, you get tired of kicking their ass, your attention gets pulled somewhere else, and the game comes down to the final frame. And now all of a sudden, things get tight. And this is why I always beat them, because when it's pressure time, that's when I raise my game. I rise to the occasion. I live for pressure, okay? I got ice water in my veins, but they fold under pressure. So I want to know what exactly it is I need, because I know I'm going to step up cool, calm, and collected, and I'm going to go get it. If I need 27 in that final frame, all right, well, let me go ahead, get this strike, get this next strike, and then I'm going to put an 8 to a 10 piece on you, and so I might turkey it out on your head and get it that way, or I might just go get my 8 piece and call it a day. Either way, I know what I need, and I'm going to go get it. In college football, If you just need a field goal, the other team couldn't advance the ball, they kicked the field goal, the kicker missed, you're a lot more conservative with your play call because you know all I need is a field goal. I win. If that team kicks a field goal, now you know, okay, I need a touchdown to win. So I can be a little bit more aggressive. I got this field goal in my back pocket, but I can be more aggressive, try to win this game now. If the other team scored a touchdown, you know, I got 4 downs. All right. I can't kick a field goal. I gotta come away with a touchdown or I lose. You know what you need. And that team that gets the football in overtime second knows exactly what they need. And to me, that's bullshit. Because if the Chiefs decide, I'm going to just kick the extra point, traditionally, kick the extra point, go about my business, the Bills can say, look, we can't stop them. Okay. If we kick the extra point, they're just going to get the football back and run it down the field and score again. So we're going to go for 2. Either we're going to win it right now or we're going to lose it. And that's cool. But again, you're penalizing the team that gets the ball first. I don't like that. The advantage shouldn't go to the team that gets it second. They know what they have to do. They know what it is that they have to get in order to keep this game either alive or to win. And that's, to me, not fair to the team that got it first. If we're talking about fair, since we want to make everything fair, since it's not just good enough for you to have to get a defensive stop. Nope, you don't have to get a stop. Don't worry about a stop. Stops are for losers. Don't get a stop. Let them score, and then if your offense is good, you score, and then just go for 2. Sounds like a plan to me. Have the team that scores first, kick an extra point, and then you undercut them by going for 2 in the gusto. That's garbage, man. The NFL, you got to do better than that shit. And I knew that, like, because there's no way to fix this. I thought that the one amendment that they made to the overtime rules already was perfect. I hate the fact that we have 10-minute overtimes. That's stupid, okay? That's the dumbest thing ever. Doesn't make any bit of sense. The only thing that, and I wasn't in favor initially of the, you kick a field goal, the other team gets a chance, but I'm like, that makes sense. And Marcus Spears, I thought, put it perfectly. It's a consolation prize. If you get a stop, the consolation prize is, all right, my team gets to possess the football. I didn't get the full stop, but I was able to keep them out of the end zone, so at least my team gets an opportunity. I can live with that. I can rock with that. What I can't live with is that you give up a touchdown, and you still have a chance to win the game in overtime because you can go for 2 and the other team may just kick an extra point. Or the other team may anticipate you going for 2, so they go for 2, they don't get it, and now you can just kick an extra point and win the game. I feel like they should have made it like this. Whatever the first team does in regulation, the second team either has to match or they don't have to do, right? So, for instance, if Kansas City wins the toss in that playoff game and they go down the field and they score the touchdown and they elect to go for 2 and they don't get it, Buffalo then has to go for 2 to win the game. Even though Kansas City went for 2 and didn't get it, Buffalo has to then go for 2. They can't just kick an extra point. If they get the 2-point conversion, they deserve to win. But if Kansas City decides to kick an extra point, Buffalo can't then go for 2. That should be the rule. You can only match up to what the team before you did. You can't exceed them. And that's kind of bogus because that's not a rule in regulation. But guess what? This isn't a rule in regulation. So all this shit is bogus. They should have just left it the way it was. I digress, though. I'm not going to sit here and bark at you guys for 20 minutes on this shit because we've done this multiple times on this show already. And I knew they were going to change this rule because the NFL is all about, it's all about, to me, acquiescing to whatever is the popular thought at the time. Everyone was outraged after the Saints got jobbed by the officials in that NFC Championship game. So what was their knee-jerk reaction? Oh, let's review pass interference. Like, come on. Who didn't know that was a terrible idea in the moment? We said this. It's subjective. It's a terrible decision. They couldn't wait till that season was over when they made that decision so they could say, no, we're getting rid of this shit. It's the worst thing they decided to do. But because the NFL always has this knee-jerk reaction to public outrage, this is the type of shit that happens. This is bogus, man. Anyway, I digress. New rule change in overtime in the postseason. Both teams have to possess the football, no matter what. It's garbage, man. It's garbage. It's to me, it's a microcosm of today's society, though. So I'm not surprised. You know, everybody wants little Joey to go out and have a good time when he's 7. They don't care about competition and teaching little Joey how to be a badass on the court or the field. They want little Joey to go out there and have a great time and have fun and learn how to be a good sportsman and have some great sportsmanship. No, I'm going to teach my son how to rip your damn esophagus out of your throat at 7. If you're soft, he's going to run you over. If you're standing in the way at home plate and he's running around third base, he's going to run your ass over. If you're on a basketball court and you just learn how to play basketball and you're 7, he's going to do your ass in. And I'm not going to be remorseful about it. My son's going to be a badass competitor. Both of them. You won't catch me out here. Oh, you gave it a puncher's try. Good job. No, I'm gonna encourage my son. I'm gonna make sure he knows he did a good job, but I'm also gonna let him know that shit wasn't good enough. You can do better. Everybody wants a juice box, a bag of goldfish, and a gold star after the game. Good job, Johnny. This is bullshit. But this is the environment that we live in. This is the climate that we've created. So I'm not surprised. In the NFL, they acquiesce to whatever's going on in society. So again, this is what you get. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to our next segment. And it is social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Going to get to your comments here in a second. You guys know how this works, but for you out there who don't, simply use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If it is pertinent, we will talk about it, react to it. If it is not, I will skip right over it. If you want to jump to the front of the line, you have something that you want to say, and you know this comment, we're probably not going to get to it because there are 30 other hashtags in front of you, and you want to jump to the front of the line, super chats are the way to do that. So with that said, let's get to the comment section. And we start with HHC Lunar, who writes, "Hey Lou, what's up?" HHC Lunar says, "I feel like the Cardinals are getting overlooked in the NFC. They still have Kyler plus good weapons. Not saying they're the favorites. I just think they are a top 5 in the NFC." Well, saying that they're top 5 in the NFC isn't really saying much at all now, is it? HHC Lunar. Think about it for a second. Who the hell is in the NFC anyway? There's the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champion Rams. There's the Green Bay Packers. Again, I think they've taken a massive step backwards, but they still got Aaron Rodgers. There's Tampa Bay with Tom Brady coming back. There's the 49ers. I don't think they're going to go away, but they do have Trey Lance. We do not know how he's going to play, but I'd like to think that they're going to be just A-okay with Kyle Shanahan calling that offense. I think Trey Lance is going to step in there and do a good job. So there's that team that was in the NFC Championship game a year ago. The Cardinals, as you mentioned, that's 5 teams right there. I mean, there's Dallas. That's 6, I guess. I don't think anybody else, I don't think any team in the NFC South or East outside of the teams that won those respective divisions a season ago, and in the North for that matter, I don't think any of those teams garners any kind of respect. Not the Vikings, Lions, or Bears, not the Commanders, Eagles, or Giants. I mean, the Eagles made the playoffs last year, but nobody's afraid of the Eagles. Again, not to disrespect the Eagles, but I'm disrespecting the Eagles. I told you, anytime someone says no disrespect, but, you know, once that conjunction hits, everything that comes thereafter is going to be disrespect. Not to disrespect the Eagles, but it's the Eagles led by Jalen Hurts. There's only so much they can strike fear into your heart. Sorry, not sorry. Nobody's afraid of the Giants. No one's afraid of the Commanders. No one's afraid of the Falcons. They don't even have a quarterback right now. They got Marcus Mariota. He'll play 4 games this season before he gets injured. The Saints, again, Jameis Winston. So many people felt like Jameis Winston was playing excellent football last year. I was like, it's the same damn Jameis Winston, guys. He just hasn't had a chance to throw interceptions because they've been protecting him with the run game. It's the same Jameis Winston. Okay. But okay, fine. Same OJ. We'll see. We'll see if it's the same old Jameis or not. And the Panthers stink. So, I mean, really? They're a top 5 team. There are only 5 teams that really look like anything right now. Now, obviously, this is what we talk about in the offseason. Anything could happen. You know, Washington could turn out to be really good. The Vikings could turn out to be juggernauts next year with all the changes that they've made. We could see teams ascend out of nowhere. We see it all the time. But if we're just talking about what these teams look like on paper, based off of what they did a season ago, the Cardinals don't have a choice but to be in the top 5. By default, there's nothing in the NFC. It's a ghost town. We've talked about this already. And the Cardinals, the reason they get overlooked is the same reason we disrespected them last year when they were the last undefeated team in the league. We don't trust them. We don't trust them. And Kyler Murray, I've already said this, he doesn't want to get hit. He's soft. He's a hell of a football player, hell of a quarterback, hell of an athlete, hell of an arm. He's soft. He doesn't want to get hit. He's soft mentally. He's very fragile mentally, as we've seen this offseason. And, oh, by the way, they lost some stuff. They lost some stuff this offseason. So, no more Chandler Jones on defense. No more Christian Kirk on offense. You don't just replace those guys. They don't just grow on trees, especially Chandler Jones. So, I don't love the Cardinals. I didn't love them last year when they had all the parts necessary. There's no more A.J. Green. It's A.J. Green. Maybe he's back, but he's not there right now. So, that's why I don't love the Cardinals. And that's why no one's talking about the Cardinals. They got to make sure that they make Kyler Murray happy first. But they'll be fine. Trust me. They'll be fine. Got a couple of super chats. Hunter Hodovic, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Hunter writes, "Sup, T? Sup, Hunter?" Says, "Hope all is well. Just showing some love. Really appreciate you, Hunter. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you." David Heath, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy David writes, "Just wanted to say hello from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am. I'm a 47-year-old Redskins fan for 42 years. At least you got to see the glory years. That's the one thing I can say about you being a fan for as long as you have, is you got to experience, live through when this team was respected as if they were the Patriots or the Chiefs, when they were the gold standard in the NFL, or one of the gold standards, along with the 49ers and the excellence that Bill Walsh instilled in that program. Gibbs and Walsh were like 1A, 1B in the 80s. You know, the Bears were hovering around with Mike Ditka, but they only had one Super Bowl to show for it, whereas Washington and the 49ers went to like 4 or 5 of, you know, Washington went to 4, 1, 3, or Washington went to 3 in the 80s, 1, 2, went to another one in the early 90s. So 4 in a 12-year span, they went to 4 Super Bowls and won 3 of them. I think the 49ers went to like 4, and I don't think they lost a single one. As a matter of fact, Joe Montana, I think he's 4-0 in the Super Bowl. So Walsh and Gibbs were like 1A, 1B, and you got to live through that. So touche, my friend, touche. Thank you for the love, David. Really appreciate you. Since the last 2 super chats were those that were members of the MOBB, I want to say this real quick. And I'm going to say it again on the show tomorrow night, but I'll say it here too. We're going to be doing, I told you, we're going balls to the wall for the draft in April. And the calendar turns to April on Friday. And every Thursday in the month of April, we're going to have a Mob Squad crash course on a specific position. You guys are going to be in control of that. I'm going to put up a poll. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put one up tonight that will be for not next week, because next week we're going to start off with wide receivers. I've been asked a million times about receivers, so we're going to go all in on the receiver position, and because a lot of us think that Washington is going to come away with the receiver in this draft, if not at 11, definitely somewhere at some point in this draft. But a lot of us think it may be at 11. So we're going to start with the receivers, but you guys are going to decide where we go next after the receiver position. And you guys are going to be in total control over that. So I look forward to having these, discussions with you guys. It'll be an hour-long, draft crash course on whatever position is that position or flavor of the week. Next week, it will be the wide receiver position. You guys will choose where we go next after that. And you just do your homework. I'll bring my homework to the table. We'll compare notes, and we'll chop it up for an hour prior to Washington, the command post each Thursday. So it'll be from 8:15 to 9:15, and then the command post live starts at 9:30. So that's what we'll be doing all April long, and I can't wait. Bart Scott can't wait. So really looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. And I just wanted to throw that out there now. And again, you'll hear this 2 or 3, 4 or 5 or 6 more times before the end of the week, whether it's here, tomorrow night's show, or on the Friday edition of the podcast. So thank you, David Heath, for the super chat. Alex, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Alex writes, Eagles winning 11 games. You might not be wrong about that. Again, I don't respect the NFC right now. I don't. So any team winning 11 games won't surprise me. If you told me the Giants won 11 games this year with their brand new head coach, who's right now looks like an offensive genius for what he's been able to do with some of these quarterbacks in the league, and Brian Daboll, if he's able to take Daniel Jones and he stays healthy, and I've talked about the Giants having weapons and having guns and shit, as I like to say. If they finally stay healthy, the offensive line is actually half decent. Who knows? That defense, they kept Patrick Graham around, which I thought was a smart move. That defense is not half bad. I wouldn't be shocked if you told me the Vikings or the Bears, Justin Fields turns out to be a stud and they get it right, with their new head coach in Chicago. If you told me that any of these teams in the NFC won 11 games, I wouldn't bat an eye. The only team that I would probably say you're a liar if you told me they won 11 games is Carolina, in Detroit. Those are the two teams I look at. I don't think those teams are winning 11 games, but I say that, but Detroit was in like 7 or 8 games last year that were decided by like a score or less that they could have easily have won. So even Detroit might not be that, crazy of a team that could win 9, 10 games this year. So Eagles winning 11 games wouldn't shock me. Cardinals are overrated. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I don't think that they're a team that's going to win the Super Bowl necessarily, but I do think they belong in the discussion when you're discussing NFC teams and who's the best in the conference. I think they should get at least an honorable mention, but they're not a front runner. If you want to call them overrated, I won't stop you. Just leave it at that. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Twin D writes, hey, LT, what's up, Twin D? He says, the good thing about the AFC jungle fit, an NFC team that is only one team can emerge and make it to the Super Bowl. Question, will that AFC team be battle-tested or battle-worn by the Super Bowl game? It just depends on which team it is. If that team that makes it through the AFC is the number 1 seed, they'll be well-rested and just fine. But if that team that makes it is the 6th seed or the 7th seed, and they had to scratch and claw just to get into the playoffs, and they couldn't take any days off or any weeks off at the end of the season, and they scratched and clawed and they built up all this momentum, but they took some battle scars on the way. But because they were riding that hot streak, because they couldn't afford to lose, because every game was a playoff game starting with week 14, and they found their way in, and they just got red hot, yeah, that team will come equipped with battle scars. They'll be worn down to a degree, but they'll be iron sharpens iron, right? That's why for years, and this is the analogy I always talk about when we talk about this is the analogy that I always talk about. The Western Conference in the 2000s, really, and especially the 20 teens, was brutal. LeBron would get to the finals every year. Why? Because the Eastern Conference was a joke. All the heavy hitters were out west. So while LeBron is cruising through the playoffs, losing 1 or 2 games, you're fighting your ass off out west. You got to deal with San Antonio. You got to deal with Golden State. You got to deal with this team or that team. And everybody's good. Portland's hanging around with Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum, and they're a tough out. And you're battling every single series. Every series is a struggle. But if you make it through, you look at that team that's waiting for you on the other side, and you say, that's food. They're not better than Golden State. They're not better than San Antonio. They're not better than Portland. I'm going to kill this team. And that's what would happen. Every year when the Lakers would come out of the West, when it was Portland and all those good teams, Utah, and they would have to fight, scratch, and claw. By the time you got to the championship, and it's the Indiana Pacers or the New Jersey Nets, oh, we're going to slaughter that team. It was the Philadelphia 76ers one year. And AI had those boys playing good, but it was Allen Iverson, Aaron McKee, and Eric Snow, and Dikembe Mutombo, and Matt Geiger. I mean, the team was full of bums. It was AI carrying a bunch of dead weight. And those guys knew their roles, and they played it well. But you weren't beating the LA Lakers. And when you got through that gauntlet, you were better because of it. And that's playing in series. In the NFL, you just got to win one game. So, to me, that AFC team that comes out on the other side, that's battle-tested, they're going to be like a sharp-ass knife ready to cut through whatever. And if that NFC team isn't equally as sharp, they're going to get their asses cut nice and quick. It won't even be something that we'll be there enjoying for 4 quarters. It'll be like Tampa Bay, what they did to Kansas City 2 years ago. It will be an ass thrashing. And you know it when you see it. Because Tampa had to go through Murderer's Row to get to the Super Bowl. They had to go through Breeze, and they had to go through Rodgers, and these were all on the road. You can laugh, but they had to go through Washington and Taylor Heineke. They were in a dogfight in that game. Probably more than they expected to be. Then they had to go to New Orleans. Yeah, Drew Brees was compromised. I'm aware. I don't care. Okay, the Saints were up in the 4th quarter of that game. Then they had to go to Green Bay. And we didn't think they could go to Green Bay and win. I can't speak for you. I didn't think they could go to Green Bay and win. So by the time they went through that gauntlet, and remember, every single one of those games were on the road, while Kansas City was just through the AFC. Bills weren't ready yet. Okay? I forgot who they smoked the round before that. But they were comfortable, man. Their feet was up. They were getting fed grapes. They got to the Super Bowl and they got exposed. And yeah, I get it. They had some injuries that occurred the game before. Their offensive line was ravaged. I get all of that. But the Buccaneers were battle tested. Iron sharpens iron. For me, if the NFC teams don't come ready to play, those AFC teams are going to be like sharp knives, and they're going to be ready to slice and dice. That's how I view it. Thank you for the super chat. Twin D. All right. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Kyle writes, can you explain what O-line can do on RPOs? Often see them upfield blocking, thinking it's a run, but QB ends up passing. Isn't that a flag, or am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. So when you run an RPO, it is on the quarterback to make a quick decision. If there's a penalty on an offensive lineman for being illegally downfield, that's on the quarterback, because the quarterback knows that these offensive linemen don't know if it's a run or a pass. They're going to block as if it's a run, because that's what was called in the huddle. So they're not changing that at the line of scrimmage. They let them run block. So those guys are firing off the ball. It's your job to get it in the belly of that running back. And if you see those linebackers suck up and you got a quick, easy window throw, you let it rip as soon as possible. But if you hold on to it, if you pump it, you pull it prematurely, that linebacker drops into that window of the slant, or you don't get the look you want, you're screwed. You're going to have all 5 of your linemen could easily be 4 or 5 yards down the field. You can't hesitate. You got to get rid of it quickly. And yes, it is a flag. It is a flag if you don't get rid of it in a timely manner. There's nothing offensive linemen can do, and really, it's not on them. It's not their job to know what it is the quarterback's going to do. The quarterback has to make a quick decision based off of the look he gets from the defense. He doesn't make a quick enough decision, he could cost his team 5 yards. So a lot of times, though, with these RPOs, you're seeing the officials be a little bit lenient on these RPOs. If they get it out, quick enough, a guy could be 3 yards down the field, they'll let it slide. It's when a guy's egregiously 5-6 yards down the field, that's when, okay, no, I got to throw the flag for this one. But, generally speaking, they tend to let those go. But it's not on the offensive line. It's nothing they can do. Their job is to fire off the football. And because if that quarterback doesn't like the look and decides to stick with the run, they got to do their job. Their job is to open up a hole and allow that running back to get to the second level. So there's not really much that an offensive lineman can do. You just do what you got to do. Do your job. And it's on the quarterback's shoulders. It's his responsibility to make sure that a flag doesn't get called for an eligible men downfield. So no, you're not wrong. Mike Lowry, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat, Mike, who writes, Mr. T, please tell me all this Cole Holcomb Davis to middle linebacker talk is complete nonsense. We're bringing that guy in here, right? I think what Ron was doing, okay? And for those of you unaware, Ron Rivera spoke yesterday to the media at the league meetings, and he pretty much opened up the idea of Cole Holcomb playing middle linebacker. He pretty much said that's an option that we can explore if need be. He didn't say that was going to be the decision that they were going to make. He just said, push come to shove, if we're not able to find a guy that we love at the middle linebacker position, because remember, I think what Ron is doing, and Ron's done a really good job of doing this since he's gotten here. Now, everyone doesn't always take heed to what Ron's saying, but Ron's pretty much, since he's gotten here, has said, look, I'm going to explain to y'all what's going on so y'all know, and y'all can't act like y'all don't know what's going on. Like, it's going to take 3 to 4 years to turn this shit around. And everybody ignored that after we won the division at 7-9, like we won 10 games. He's like, I told y'all this was a 3-4 year, rebuild and turnaround. And nobody wanted to hear that. And, Ron has been pretty adamant about, look, this is the situation. Y'all can hear me when I say it, but I'm just telling y'all, Ron's essentially letting you know, we got 6 draft picks, dude. Like, we might not be, you can't fix everything in one offseason. I've said that multiple times. It becomes increasingly hard to fix even the things that need fixing when you only have 6 draft picks and your cap space gets gobbled up. And he said Carson Wentz's deal and the trade for Carson Wentz impacted our offseason. Clearly it did. They didn't anticipate having $33 million in cap space and having $28 million of it ate up just like that. They didn't plan for that shit. So yeah, it altered their plans a bit. And then having to trade, a draft pick to get him, and now being down to 6 draft picks wasn't ideal either. So what he's essentially saying is, hey, I need this Carson Wentz trade to work. In order for it to work, he needs to be well protected, which means, hey, we might have to draft a guard, he needs to have weapons, which means we may have to take a receiver and or a tight end, which means we may not be able to draft a middle linebacker early in the draft like we want to. So just in case of the event, because we don't have a 3rd round pick, just in case of the event that we get to the 4th round and there's nothing there that we like at the middle linebacker position, and we might like an outside linebacker that we see in the 4th round and the 5th round, but we may not love any of these dudes we see here in the 4th round as a middle linebacker. So just throwing that out there that A. Cole might be our middle linebacker, and that's not the worst thing in the world. So what I'm telling you is Ron is setting the table in case of the event that he can't get his hands on a middle linebacker in the draft. Cole Holcomb may be your starting middle linebacker. He's not telling you that they're not going to address the middle linebacker position. He's telling you there's a chance that I might not be able to. Stay tuned. So we'll see. Thank you for the super chat, Mike Lowry. Hunter Hodovic, thank you for the super chat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Double H. My guy, Hunter. Hodovic writes, okay, so fun, random sports question. Who has the best nickname in sports right now? My opinion, Cardiac Kimba is as good as it gets. The best nickname in sports. I do love me some Slim Reaper, Kevin Durant. That's a pretty sick nickname. That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and think about that because there are a lot of dudes with some dope nicknames. But I don't know if you can beat the Slim Reaper though. Yeah, I think I'd have to go with Slim Reaper right now. But there's a lot of good nicknames out there. I off the top of my head, I can't think of all of them. But that's the one that jumped out at me immediately. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, Hunter Hodovic, Johnny Boy. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Johnny Boy 26 writes, don't understand that hate on Scott Turner. The guy didn't have a quarterback yet. Watch the narrative change this season. Look, I'm not saying that Scott Turner's been perfect up until this point. And I've always had one nitpick with Scott Turner since getting here a couple of seasons ago, and that's his situational awareness. I don't think he's always as aware of the situation as he should be. And I don't think he always has the pulse of what needs to be done. When you're an offensive coordinator, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know what you're capable of, you know what you're not capable of, and you know what situations that, favor your team and what don't, and what guys respond well to certain situations. That first year, any third and short, just give it to Peyton Barber. Well, there were times like the Steelers game, for instance, where we get down to the 1 yard line and 4 straight times Peyton Barber doesn't get the football. And luckily enough for us on 4th down, TJ Watt committed a penalty that gave us a fresh set of downs, or else we would have gotten to the 1 yard line and gotten stoned. When Peyton Barber hadn't failed on 4th or 3rd and short all season long, or for that matter, any short down situation, give him the football. I thought last year there were some times, I remember, in particular 2 years ago, we were moving the ball early in the game against the Lions. I want to say it was the opening possession of the game. And we get to about the 40-yard line and he tries a double reverse and it gets stopped, or it might have just been a reverse, and it gets stopped for like an 8-9 yard loss. It killed the drive. And you're like, why? Why at the plus 40 are you trying to reverse? Like, you do that at midfield, you do that at the minus 40. You don't do that at the plus 40. Like, what are you doing right now? Like, I just don't think he always understands what needs to be done. That said, I think the guy's a really good offensive mind. I think he can scheme guys open. And as you mentioned, he hasn't had the quarterback to really take full advantage of some of the plays that he's called. I think things will be better, but then I think Carson Wentz will have to check it down, and that's something that he doesn't really adhere to all that well. So we'll see. He doesn't have a problem getting the football to the running backs. He just has a problem getting it to them, out of the backfield in rhythm and timing of the play as a check down. But we'll see what happens. I won't count him out. But I don't have a Scott Turner problem, but there are a lot of people out there, because this is what a lot of people like to do. They don't actually know what's happening. They just know that the results aren't what they want. Somebody's got to take the blame, right? They never blame the players, or I shouldn't say never. They rarely blame the players. The first thing you do is you blame the coaches. That's the easiest thing to do, because the players can't be messing up this bad, right? Like, we got talent. Terry McLaurin's a beast, right? Antonio Gibson's a stud, right? Like, J.D. McKissic's awesome, right? Like, they can't be the reason we stink. It's got to be Scott Turner making the wrong calls. That's not always the case. David Heath, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, David, double up, thank you for doubling up. Writes, I love Coach Ron. He was great for Charlotte, North Carolina. He is more than a coach. He's great for the city and the players in the team, and the players. He teaches his players how to be a man first. I think that's why he's so well respected around the league, is because he was once a player. He understands what it means to be a player in the locker room. And I think it's that previous knowledge of what it felt like being a player that helps him understand the plight of the current NFL player. And thus it makes him a player's coach, where he respects his guys. He's not soft by any stretch of the imagination. He's a hard ass when he needs to be, but he knows what it's like to be in their shoes. So it's one thing about football, one thing about sports in general is that it's an extension of life. And so when you're a college football coach, these are young men, very impressionable, that you will have an opportunity to make a huge impact in their lives because they're 18. When you get your hands on them, some of them are 17, they're 18, 19, 20 years old. They're still developing. Then these guys come to the NFL, they're still young men. Like, yeah, they're grown men. They're 21, they're 22, 23, 24 years old, but they're still young men. And if you've ever watched the documentary Broke, that's a great example of these guys are still young in the mind. They're not as developed as you being a 45-year-old or, somebody being 50 or 60. These are young guys. And so they need guidance. They need tutelage. And sometimes they need a father figure, and not all the time. Again, these are grown ass men, but you want a guy that's going to be there for you. That's going to be more than just a coach barking at you. And I think that's what Ron Rivera tries to instill in his players is that I'm more than just Coach Rivera. My door is always open. If you need to talk, you can come in. And like you said, he's great in the community. Wherever he is, he usually has fundraisers and organizations and nonprofits. So he's a guy that really, him and his wife are really big on giving back. So I think that's part of the reason why Daniel Snyder wanted him here is because not only was he respected around the league, his image is so good that this is the kind of guy you need when the shit starts to hit the fan in Washington, which it has since Ron's been here. He's the kind of guy that allows you to deflect some of that. That's why he's here as well. Not to mention that I think he's a good coach. There are a lot of people out there that beg to differ. Calvin Krim, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Calvin, writes, Lou, this OT rule change is another example of just how much more they value QBs than everyone else. Love the move from an entertainment perspective. Absolutely. You hit it spot on, right on the head. Like at the end of Marcus Spears' rant on Get Up that I played for you earlier in the program, he said at the end, they don't care about defense. He's right. Because I can tell you right now, if a game ends up being 13-10, do you know how many of you will come back the next day and talk about how boring the game was? It was a snooze fest. Oh my God. And it was just a defensive struggle. If two good defensive teams play against one another and the final score is 16-10, you're going to either fall asleep or you're going to complain every step of the way as you watch that game from start to finish. Everyone loves the 41-38 game. That's highly entertaining. Nobody wants to see the 16-13 slobber knocker. I enjoy both. I told you guys, I think it was 2 years ago when the Ravens played the Titans in Wild Card Weekend. And remember, they had bad blood festering because the Titans players went to midfield and stepped on the Ravens' crest and they were digging it out. And so there was a lot of bad blood between the two teams. And so the Ravens go to Tennessee and beat the Titans. And it's a low-scoring affair. It wasn't a really high-scoring game, but it was physical. And the Ravens defense shut down Derrick Henry. Remember, he rushed for 2,000 yards that year. And it was a defensive struggle. I loved that game, the intensity, the physicality. I don't always want to see, 45-38. That's cool. And there's a place and time for that. But the NFL knows what sells. Offense sells. There was this commercial, this ad that I loved growing up because it featured two of my favorite players because I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. And it was Chicks Dig the Long Ball, right? And you had these two pitchers walking around trying to impress these women, and they're trying to hit home runs. Why? Because striking out guys isn't cool. But you know what chicks do dig? The long ball. It's the same premise in the NFL. The NFL wants as many eyeballs as possible, as many people talking about the game the day after, and the way to do that is to get 45-38, not 16-10. So this overtime rule, to me, it's less about that. This overtime rule is. It's more about the quarterback, as you mentioned, and that's, oh, this guy needs to get a chance. He didn't get an opportunity. Mahomes didn't get a chance back in 2019. He needs an opportunity, or 2018, I think it was. He didn't get a chance. He needs a chance. In 21, Allen didn't get a chance. He should have got a chance. Like you said, it's about these quarterbacks. Fat Bastard, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Fat Bastard, writes, oh, man. What up, Lou? It's been a minute. It's been a long minute. Yes, it has. Fat American. He says, how your twins? They're doing great, man. They're kicking ass. I'm not going to lie to you. I just started having to watch them by myself during the day. My mom had been here for a couple of months helping out. My wife, obviously was on maternity leave. She just went back to work not too long ago. And my mom was still here. She went back home. And so now it's all on me. And man, I must say, they kick ass. I mean, they got a mean tag team going. Tag team back again. They got me good today. Anyway, they're doing well. Thanks for asking. He says, hope you're good, man. Congrats on the 20K. Thank you so much. I truly do appreciate that and appreciate you. I'm hanging in there, and I hope you can say the same as well. Great to hear from you. Always great to hear from you. Thanks. David Heath, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, David, writes, me and my wife have family in Virginia Beach. She is the elder of the fam. We come up maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Maybe down the road we can meet up, break bread. I enjoy listening to you every day for the last year. Hey, man, I would love nothing more than to do that. I can't wait until I get to engage a lot of you in person. I had plans to do this 3 years ago, and then COVID came and turned everything upside down on its head. We're going to do, a draft party at a local establishment. And I had all these ideas and visions of, traveling around, not the country, because I'm not as, well known on the West Coast or even in the Midwest as I am on the East Coast. But I was going to hit a couple cities, do some things, meet and greet, have some fun. And COVID shot all of that shit down, so we're starting to get back to a level of normalcy, but we'll never, ever be back to where we once were prior to COVID, because there's so many variants. And every time you think you can let your guard down, there's this new Omicron, variant. At this point, I think everybody's like, look, I'm going to live my life. If I get COVID, I get COVID. It is what it is. But one of these days, we're going to be able to get back to some level of normalcy, and we can finally start to link up and meet each other, because I'm looking forward to doing that. So sounds like a plan, David. Greatly appreciate you and your wife. Bruce Allen, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Bruce writes, you guys miss me yet? Hell no. He says, the legacy I built has been destroyed. The culture used to be so damned good. I tried keeping Kurt at quarterback. You guys laughed. You didn't try very hard, Bruce. And the culture that you claimed was damn good. When you got fired in 2019, we were one of the worst teams in football. That was a true representative of what you had built over your, 9 years, close to 10 years of being in Washington, decade of terror, being the dark, the dark prince, the prince of darkness, as we like to call him. Your reign of terror left an indelible mark on this organization. I mean, it was already bad. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Vinny Serrato and what those clowns were doing before you got here kind of paled in comparison to what you did. So the only thing you did was you saved us a buck along the way, but you didn't make us any better. You made us worse. So thanks, Bruce, for nothing. Ishmael Benitez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Ishmael Benitez, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, what up, Louie? What's up, Ishmael? Says, did you see Jim Irsay's comment? Wentz was a mistake. I didn't know how to feel when I seen the Ants trade, but I'm the Wentz trade. I'm probably your phone probably did a autocorrect. The Wentz trade, but he's starting to grow on me. Hope all is well with the family. I did see that. I was going to talk about it tomorrow on the command post, but since you brought it up, yeah, I saw it. And I told you guys, the more I hear from Jim Irsay, the more I hear on the subject matter, the more I read on the subject matter, which is why I put out the short of the podcast episode I had 2 episodes ago when I talked about, or it might have been 1 episode, might have been 249, when I talked about, matter of fact, it was because it was smoke and mirrors. And I talked about, I think that narrative on Carson Wentz, being a cancer in the locker room and not taking the coaching and being a poor teammate, this, that, and the third. I think there was validity to that in Philadelphia. I thought there were little cliques and factions in that locker room, and he was a part of that. And I think they coddled him too much. And sort of like Robert Griffin III, they empowered him to feel like he didn't have to answer to anyone. And thus he could do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And they created that environment. So you can't really get mad at the player when you create an environment that allows for that type of behavior to take place. You reap what you sow. I think he learned from that Philadelphia experience, and I thought he was a better teammate in Indianapolis. Clearly, the players, there was no love lost when he got traded from Philadelphia. You might have heard from 1 or 2 guys, but there wasn't this outpouring of support for Carson Wentz when he got dealt from Philadelphia to Indianapolis. When he got dealt from Indianapolis to Washington, you had players upon player upon player, coming out in support of Carson Wentz, not wanting him to be traded, feeling like that was a mistake. And I really do truly believe this was spearheaded by Jim Irsay. And he's a terrible owner. Don't get it twisted. Jim Irsay is a joke. So he got in his feelings for whatever reason. Somebody left me. If you really read a really good post by someone in the comment section, go to that excerpt. I think it's in the excerpt. It may be in the podcast episode. Either one of those 2 videos. Someone left, a war and peace diatribe, but it's a good read. It's worth your time about why Irsay did what he did, and how Irsay, pretty much pushed this whole agenda. And Irsay's not holding back. He's essentially telling you, yeah, I didn't want it. It was a mistake. We realized that, and we got out of the. Anytime you're willing to eat what the Colts ate to get rid of Carson Wentz, and Irsay even doubled back and said, we would have ate the guaranteed portion of his deal just to release him. We wanted him gone that bad. It tells you all you need to know about, Jim Irsay and what he really wanted. I told you, I don't think this was a Frank Reich move. This is all Jim Irsay. I don't even think Chris Ballard was necessarily on board with this, but he answers to the owner. And so he needed to show a united front, and that's what they're doing. But I don't think that if Frank Reich had it his way, Carson Wentz would still be his quarterback in Indianapolis right now, not Matt Ryan. So anyway, I digress. Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Zoe writes, give me college OT rules over NFL OT any day. I hate college football overtime rules. Here's why. That's not football. You give a team the football at the 25-yard line. First of all, in college, that works because I don't know if you remember the LSU Mississippi State game, or excuse me, LSU Texas A&M game. It was ridiculous. It's like 73 to 68 or 73 to 65 or some nonsense. 72 to 66, some craziness like this. It was a college basketball score because they went to like 7 overtimes. They kind of altered the rule after that game to where you had to go for 2 a lot sooner. But look, at the end of the day, that's not football to put the ball at the 25-yard line and say, go after it. In college, you can get away with that because the field goal kickers are ass in college football. So you're not guaranteed to make a 43-yard field goal. In the NFL, you can't give a team the ball at the 43. They're coming away with at least 3 points, more likely than not, with the way these kickers kick. And with the way these offenses are well-oiled machine and the games are set up for the offense to succeed, you're begging for a team to just score touchdowns over and over and over again. I don't love the college rules, overtime rules, but it's cool for college. I don't despise it for the college game. I would despise it for the NFL. I'll take the NFL overtime. Just let them play. Let them play, and there doesn't need to be both teams touching the football. Like, both teams touching it in college is a joke. Oh, you scored a touchdown. Now I get to score a touchdown. Now you kick the field goal. Now all I need is a field goal. Now you got to go for 2 because we're in the third overtime. You get 2. Now I get 2. Now we're going to the fourth overtime. Like, that shit is exhausting. Somebody win already. I don't need that. That's what happens when you give a team the ball at the 25-yard line. So they're going to get some points, you think. But like I said, college football kickers are ass. So it's nothing for them to miss a 33-yard field goal. Nothing. Mr. Snyder, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Mr. Snyder, writes, yeah, Bruce, thanks for nothing. Now my team is a laughing stock because of you. Has nothing to do with me, and the fans see that and love me. And you know what's crazy is that Dan may actually have believed that when he fired Bruce. When we got the Happy Thanksgiving press conference, when he introduced Ron Rivera and blamed everything on Bruce and said that he didn't realize how toxic the culture had become, and he had been somewhat disengaged and had been hands off, and now he was going to be more hands on. Like, what are you talking about, guy? So you're doing this tongue in cheek and being facetious. I think Daniel Snyder actually believed that, and may even still believe that, because he lives in this insulated bubble world of him and his wife, and they just don't get it, And in order to be married to Daniel Snyder, you have to not get it. And she let me know that she didn't get it, because I'm like, maybe Tanya, is a little bit, sharper than her husband. But then when she came out and pretty much told the women that they're victims. My family is going through a lot because of what you're saying about, my husband and his organization. And I'm like, she didn't get this shit at all. She's just as dense as her husband. So, yeah, they live in a bubble, man. They live in a bubble. Anyway, I digress. I'm gonna take this hashtag from Face Vengeance, who writes, I hope Wentz proves people wrong this year, because it feels like Irsay is going out of his way to trash him. I couldn't agree with you more. I hope he goes and kills it too, because Irsay is going above and beyond the Call of Duty of the man's gone now. Like, you don't have to continue to keep his name in your mouth and go out of your way to talk about how poor of a decision it was to bring him on board and how you couldn't wait to get rid of him. And he even had the audacity to say, I really don't even know why I wanted to get rid of him. I just knew I needed to get rid of him. Okay, whatever, guy. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, 110%. So now we're going to end our show, as we always do, with garbage time. Did you hear about Lamar Jackson and Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti? In case you guys haven't heard, Lamar Jackson still hasn't gotten his deal. I think you're aware of that. Josh Allen has gotten his money. Baker Mayfield didn't get his money, and there was a reason why, as we see now clearly. And I told you the Browns were right in not paying Mayfield, because we didn't know going into the season, and he didn't. They needed him to confirm what they saw in 2020, and he didn't do that in 2021. So now they're like, we're not sure about him. Clearly they weren't sure. That's why Deshaun Watson is there. And so, the next guy in line from that 18 draft class to get paid is Lamar Jackson. But he's slow playing this thing. He's going into the final year of his deal, that 5th-year option year. Generally, you don't let quarterbacks go into the 5th-year option season, because you're one step closer to getting to Kirk Cousins territory. And nobody wants to do that. So Steve Bisciotti was like, look, the deal that Deshaun Watson just got complicates matters. He's like, I wish they wouldn't have guaranteed him his full contract, essentially. It's the most money we've ever seen in an NFL contract that was fully guaranteed. 5 years, $230 million. It's crazy. And he's like, obviously Lamar is looking at that and he's saying, okay, that's a lot of money. He's not saying that I need to get that kind of bread, but he's not looking at that contract and saying I shouldn't get that bread. So he's like, our guy, Eric DaCosta, Ravens GM, he's already reached out to Lamar and his agent to try to get something done. And Lamar's like, yo, I'm good right now. Like, he's like, look, and Steve Bisciotti said, Lamar's so competitive. All he's really worried about, he's obsessed with winning a Super Bowl, proving everybody wrong, right? And if he does that, it'll be like the Joe Flacco effect. Remember, Flacco bet on himself that final year of his deal. They win the Super Bowl. He breaks the bank, and they got to release the whole team to keep Joe Flacco. Lamar Jackson, I think, wants to prove to all the naysayers that I can do this and then say, hey, now you got to pay me. And if it doesn't work out that way, he could always get franchise tagged and go the Kirk Cousins route. And it's crazy. You rarely hear owners acknowledge what other guys have done. But he literally said he could be thinking, I could take the Kirk Cousins route, get to free agency. They slap me with the franchise tag. We know the money's going up. The QB money's going up. So you slap me with the franchise tag the first time. I still don't sign. You slap me with another franchise tag. Now you got to pay me 30% or whatever. And now, that number could be 60, 70 million by the time we get to, 2024, 2025. You see what I'm saying? And he could have made $110 million over a 3-year span and still hasn't signed that mega deal like Kirk Cousins did. I told you, no one's worked the system like Kirk Cousins has. So Lamar could have, taken a page out of Kirk Cousins' book and said, I'm good. But to me, when you play the brand of football that he plays, and remember, he had stayed relatively healthy the first, 3-4 years of his career. It wasn't until last year that he got banged up. When you rely on your legs like he does, I would think you would want your money as soon as possible, just in case something crazy happens. But Lamar is slow playing this thing. It's an interesting dynamic. Lamar came out today and said, look, I don't want out of Baltimore. I don't know where that shit came from, but I don't want out of Baltimore. But it's just a fascinating dynamic, man, to see how he's playing this thing. Because Kyler Murray right now is crying over not getting his money. He's only been in the league 3 years. Lamar's like, I'm good. You can pay me, but if you're not going to pay me top dollar, I'm good. And remember, Lamar doesn't have an agent. Keep that in mind. That's something we talked about in the past. Him and his mom are handling his negotiations. So it's a fascinating ordeal, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Brandon Brantley, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Brandon writes, Baker gutted it out, in my opinion, and got screwed. I thought the same thing. Look, he wasn't healthy. He did not play well. But if you show up between the white lines, healthy or not, and you don't play well, they're not going to judge you on you being hurt. They're just going to say you stunk. Baker gutted it out. I'm with you, Brandon. I thought he gutted it out too, and I thought he got a raw deal. I thought the Browns, at least they could have had the common courtesy and the decency to tell him what they were trying to do. It might not have made him feel any different about wanting out, but at least he wouldn't have been blindsided. Robert Griffin III, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, both them tripping. Buy my book, Surviving the Bench. Go on. Dejan Bell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Dejan writes, Irsay Buns, he on 80s drugs. We hit a lick with Wentz. We're going to see. I mean, I get those vibes from him. And remember, he had an issue with drugs, with I think prescription drugs not too long ago. So he looks like he's lived a hard life when you look at him. For a guy with his kind of money that grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, he looks like he's lived a hard life. There are a lot of NFL owners that look like they ain't a day over, 50, and they're like pushing 80. He doesn't look like that. He looks like his age. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Twin D. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Twin D, writes, rumor has it Wentz's wife is at home telling Irsay to keep my husband's name out your effing mouth. He could get slapped now. You know, don't test the kid. All right. Wentz's wife, she's legit. Don't test her. She might have to come over there and give him a backhand and let him know what's good. Keep my husband's name out your effing mouth. We'll see. I hope we get to really drive that pill home and ram it right down his throat, force him to swallow it. We play Indianapolis this year, in Indy, by the way. So he'll have a chance to go back there and do some damage. Hopefully, we can get that done for him. He'll want that one bad. Trust me. Yeah, he got a raw deal in Indy, did Carson Wentz. When nobody can tell you why he got released or traded, even the owner who wanted him gone can't even tell you, you know that's some bullshit. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 250th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. If you haven't already done so, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit the like button as it helps this channel grow exponentially. Almost 200 of you out there, only 60 likes. We can do so much better. You guys, hit that like button if you haven't already done so on the way out. I got one more super chat that will take us home from Dejan Bell. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Dejan. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, I understand he snapped the Madagascar out of him. Look, man, that dude's got a lot going on, and I'm glad he's okay. I don't wish him any ill will. I got nothing bad to say about Jim Irsay. I just know that he was tripping. You know, in his personal life and as the owner of the Colts, he's made some pretty poor decisions. And I think this could turn out to be one of the worst he's made recently. And it could come back to backfire. If Matt Ryan plays well, nobody will care. Nobody will, bat an eye and they'll say they did the right thing. If Matt Ryan looks washed next year and they're worse off, this might come back to haunt them, especially if Washington plays well. But we'll see what happens. Got a super chat here from Vinny Serrato. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, you guys still looking for a GM? I'm available. Now we got one, man. We good. We got Marty Herney and we got Martin Mayhew. We good. Thanks, but no thanks, Vinny. Remember that laugh from Vinny? We good, Vinny. Thanks. You guys are hilarious out there. Thank you so much for the support. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow night for the Command Post Live. Until then, get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. God bless, and good night. Louie T.